In this episode of the Recover Your Soul podcast, we're going to talk about expectations. I know that sometimes I've had expectations and the other person didn't even know what they were. And so, of course, they weren't met. And there's frustration and there's resentments and there's upset, and it can totally throw us off in our relationships. We're going to learn about the difference between expectations and intention. My name is Reverend Rachel Harrison, and this is the Recover Your Soul podcast, a spiritual path to a happy and healthy life. I started Recover Your Soul after having profound changes in my life from my recovery of alcoholism, control addiction, and codependency. I was guided to share the tools and principles of spirituality and soul recovery to help others transform their lives as mine was transformed. For us to overcome external circumstances, we must first turn the attention to ourselves, focusing on inner change. Positive results in our lives will follow. Welcome back to the Recover Your Soul podcast. I am Reverend Rachel Harrison, and I am so glad that you're here today on your soul recovery journey. If you're new to the podcast, welcome to the community. It is growing. Please get on Facebook and join the Facebook group. Please join us for the Soul Recovery Support Group once a month. We are all in this together, and as this continues to grow, it's so much fun to watch everybody interacting and connecting. I think of Soul Recovery as a community and a movement to help people to transform, to take responsibility for their own lives and their own happiness. So thank you for being here. For today's episode, I wanted to hit on expectations. And I wanted to hit on expectations for a couple of reasons. One, it's been coming up in my life and in working with people and in my working with myself as well. And so I thought it'd be a great thing to hit on. The other is that I opened up the big book of AA to look specifically for a story in the back. If you don't know the big book of AA, the first part of the book is about the 12 steps and about alcoholism and how to do recovery. And then the entire second half of the book is actually short stories from people who have been alcoholics and recovered from alcoholism or on the journey of recovery. And they're powerful stories, and they are really used as tools as well in the journey of the 12-step program. There is a specific passage that I was looking for and I couldn't find, but I think it was because I was supposed to find a part of a story that was around acceptance. And so I'm just going to read off of page 420, second paragraph, and the story that it's from is "Acceptance was the answer." But what I want to read is this one line that says, "Perhaps the best thing of all for me is to remember that my serenity is inversely proportional to my expectations." And I loved that because I wanted to talk about expectations today. And so just to see again in the recovery world, the words about what I wanted to share with you. When Rich and I were in the midst of our fighting and being on the emotional battlefield and struggling, one of the situations that we were in was that Rich had this level of expectation of how he wanted the kids to perform. And he used to say that you've got to reach way up here. And I'm putting my hand really up high, the highest I can. You got to reach way up here and tell them that you want it way up here for them to even come in halfway. That to me didn't make any sense, because what I felt like he was saying was, you want to tell them they have to be perfect, knowing they're just going to be human. But in my experience and in my belief system, what I was saying to them was that you would always be disappointed. And I used to tease him that he had a neon sign on his forehead that just said, disappointed, disappointed, disappointed. And yet, when I started to really start to look at myself and stop pointing the finger exclusively at him, I realized I had an expectation too. I had an expectation of what kind of father he was going to be. I had an expectation of how he was going to interact with the kids. I had an expectation of how he was going to interact with me. And in the midst of our discussing and trying to get healthier around this, he actually wrote down, after doing a workshop one weekend, intention over expectation. Intention over expectation. And in our family, we started looking at the complexity of the word expectation and the pain that can come from expectation. So I love that this line says, inversely proportionate, that the serenity is inversely proportionate to my expectations. My serenity was completely damaged and not even existent when I was in a place with Rich where I had this level of expectation of how he was going to be. It's interesting because I can now see more clearly what he was talking about in terms of wanting to bring that level up for the kids. It's not about having, especially with children or in work situations or even in relationship, to have a situation where you're just saying, don't try hard. Don't treat me well. I don't care. I don't have any expectation in this. That's low self-esteem. That is setting the bar so low because you don't have value of what the situation is. But it's very different to utilize the power of an expectation, and we can have expectations for ourselves too. So we can have high expectations for ourselves that can be used in a positive way. That this value of saying, I want to do better for myself. I have a desire to meet these goals, to do this thing for myself. We can use that in a positive way of expectation. I've been starting to have more clarity around and using this and working with people and talking in the podcast about every part of us, every one of our parts of ourselves, every one of our defense mechanisms, our personality styles, the way that we walk out in the world, this terminology, the ego, pain, all of these things, expectations, everything has a way that you can utilize it, see it, live from it, that has a lightness to it, that has a positivity to it, that is beneficial, that raises you up to be your best self, to utilize it to its best way. And then underneath is the darker side, the shadow side, the unhealthy side, the lean towards dysfunction. So it's never about making a decision that there's a right and a wrong or a good and a bad. It's about continuing to let go of our judgment, continuing to release the need to do everything perfect, and just recognize when something is starting to move into an unhealthy pattern, and then catch ourselves and allow ourselves to see where that is hurting us, what the feelings are, what we can do about it. So the thing about expectations is generally we're not talking about our expectations for ourselves because, again, with that light and dark side, that healthy and dysfunctional, we can utilize expectations for ourselves in positive ways. I can have an expectation that I'm going to have quality podcasts, that I'm going to connect with and lead my community well. That is an expectation that I can have for myself. But if I start doing that to the detriment of myself, if I start not taking the time that I need for myself because I'm raising the bar to a place that is unrealistic and it's making me unhealthy, then I'm not actually utilizing that desire to its best potential. Now, in relationships, I think that expectation is a way that maybe once we see it and we start to notice that we're showing up in the world with this level of expectation versus a desire versus a preference versus an intention, those are on that light side. Those are on the healthier side. When we start getting to expectations and then what we think that the other people are supposed to do in that level of expectation, we're basically setting ourselves up for disappointment. We're setting ourselves up for things not going well. And a lot of the time, this is because the other person has no idea what the expectations are, no idea what they're supposed to be doing, or those expectations have been given to them without them agreeing to them. I could give you an example from my own life, and we still have plenty of podcasts left, so we'll see what I come up with for that. But right now I want to talk about a show that I cannot stop watching every time it comes on, Love is Blind on Netflix. And every season I say I'm not going to watch another one of these seasons. And I don't watch that much reality TV, but somehow this show just gets me every single time because I get sad and heartbroken and connected and interested in these relationships. And what I watch is I watch sadness over expectation. I watch people in this place that we all were when we were young and wanting our relationships to show up a certain way. And they go into this scenario where they quote unquote date without seeing each other in these pods. And they get to know each other on a deep level in these hours long time together of sharing their hearts without knowing what people look like. And they end up connecting. And then generally the first level of expectation that is not met is when they see each other. It's either met or not met, right? So in their mind, they've decided what someone looks like. And even though they say that looks don't matter, of course they matter. And you see people either thinking the other person is attractive or not attractive. And those expectations you can see when somebody is pleased or when someone is disappointed. And then they go off on their get to know each other honeymoon before the wedding. And there's always sadness because there's this level of expectation of who you think the other person should be, how they're going to speak to you, how they're supposed to show up, what the communication is going to be like, how they're going to be loved, what is our intimacy going to look like. And I watch it like a train wreck every single season, and I tell myself I'm not going to watch it, and I continue to watch it. And I think that it just makes my heart sad because it's a marker of a larger problem that we have in the world of not having clarity with the people in our lives, and that we set ourselves up with these expectations and we get our heart broken. And I always say, okay, I'm not going to watch it after this episode. It's just too much. And of course, I come back and I've watched every season. As a spiritual coach, I can support you on your path to make deep and real changes that will bring you a life of peace, happiness, connection, and abundance. Visit the website recoveryoursoul.net to book coaching sessions, read the blog, listen to some of my original music, and subscribe to receive email updates. I think of Recover Your Soul as a community. Follow us on social media, join the private Facebook group, and even our monthly soul recovery support group on Zoom to support each other and connect. For an extra episode each week, become a Patreon member or subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If these episodes are helping you in any way and you want to donate, you want to really figure out how can I support this community and recover your soul, please look at the show notes below. There is a link to be able to donate monthly $3, $5, $8, or $10. This cost of a fancy cup of coffee would really help support this community and recover your soul. Together, we can do the work that will recover your soul. Watched every season. But if I look at that in our lives, and you take the drama, of course, they edit those shows to the highest level of drama, but we take it into our own lives, I can relate to that so much because, like I said earlier, I had an expectation of what kind of father Rich was going to be and how we were going to be with our kids. And even today, if I live from a level of expectation of how I think people are going to think of me, how I think people are going to talk to me, how I think my husband's going to show up, I'm deciding whether that makes me happy or not. The story that this is in the big book is around acceptance, or the middle of the story that I have little markers on talks about acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I'm disturbed, it's because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact in my life unacceptable to me, and I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it's supposed to be at that moment. So when we switch our brain away from this belief that we have these expectations and that if they are not met, then we're going to be disappointed. And we switch it around and we say, I'm going to choose acceptance. And I'm going to look at what is it that I need? What is it that I want? What is my preference? And that when we come from this healthier place, we can say to our partner, say to our coworkers, say to whoever our friends are, whatever the world is, this is what I'm needing right now versus I expect you to be a certain way for me to be happy. Rich and I live at this point without the kids. We're both super busy and we have our own schedules and we have to be really clear with each other about what we need from each other and what our schedules are and what's going on with us. And he has band practice a couple nights a week. I usually have something going on at least a night or two a week. And so if I have this expectation that he's going to come home from work and he's going to want to dote on me and spend time with me and watch TV with me and have dinner with me, and he doesn't know that that's the expectation, he's going to walk in the door and take a shower and be out the door to go to his next thing. And I'm left feeling frustrated. Well, that isn't on him. That's on me because I'm not clear with him about asking him what his plans are. What are we doing? How is this week going to work out? When are we going to find time together? What's going to be our schedule? Now, even if you have a preference, even if I have a preference and a desire that says, honey, at least one time a week, I'd really like for us to have a night together where we spend the evening together and go out to eat or stay home and do something more than just being checked out. That would be my desire for us to be connected. That is usually received well, that kind of communication. But if my attachment to that gets to be that if that doesn't happen, then I'm going to be upset, then I'm setting myself up in an inverse relationship that my serenity is being affected by my expectation. So holding loosely onto that desire that I have, that preference that I have, so that if that was our night that we were supposed to hang out together and for whatever reason it doesn't work out, can I work on myself and can I be okay with it? Can I be in a place where it's all right with me? We so often do not communicate with the other people, and this is similar to boundaries, about what it is that we're looking for. And boundaries are so important, and yet they can also be used on that level of control, setting up an expectation for a person that they didn't agree to. If you have boundaries that have been agreed to by the other person or boundaries that you've set for your own safety and people are not meeting those boundaries and not giving you the safety that you need, there's a whole other can of worms that goes with that. What we're looking at is we're looking at that part of us that has an expectation that we're setting ourselves up to not be met. And the value of acceptance, the value of us looking at accepting ourselves and accepting the people around us, looking at the clarity of communication, looking at how we're showing up in a situation, looking at, have I asked for what I need? Am I being clear about what I need? And is that need realistic? Is it about you taking care of yourself first and then asking somebody else for help? Or is it putting the expectation that somebody else is going to be the first place where you get your needs met? Now, in work situations or outside in the world situations, again, we want to make sure we're staying on that upper side of this concept that says it's absolutely okay to have desires for things to be of quality, to have relationships where people show up when they said that they're supposed to show up for you, to have a way of being that is around being in integrity, that's around being our best selves. That is absolutely okay to ask for in the world. And when it doesn't hit that, to not let it blow your mind, to not let it throw you into a spiral, to not let that have the power to take you down. To remember that we here in soul recovery are constantly in the place of remembering where our power is, and it is within ourselves, that we aren't handing it over to somebody else to tell us if we're okay, that if these expectations aren't met, that we're not okay, that we can look clearly at our lives and be taking responsibility for what is ours. And we can always come from integrity in a place that has to check in and say, I can see that I showed up in a way where I was wanting from you and expecting from you something that was unrealistic. When I look at those shows, I think, man, if people went in without expectations and noticed their feelings, noticed how they were feeling, and talked more about how they were feeling about what they were needing or wanting from the other person, then it would allow the other person to show up in different ways. And we would be able to be honest with ourselves about how important some things are that we claim are not that important. And then looking at, why is that important? And what am I needing that for? We're constantly checking in with ourselves. So I invite you to look deeply at this concept of what level of expectation are you setting in all the areas of your life, including for yourself, and are those realistic? And are they preferences and desires, or are they set in stone? And if they aren't met, how are you responding to them? And are you setting up the people in your life to fail? Now, this can be especially hard when we're dealing with people who are dysfunctional in their own lives. And so, again, we're looking at ourselves. We're looking at our interaction with people. When I realized I was so angry at Rich for his level of expectation for Alex, and I realized I was on the backside doing the same thing to him, and that all I could do was work on me, and I let go of their relationship, they worked it out. They worked out their relationship for whatever it was for them. There was acceptance there. This is big work and big stuff, and you're doing it, and you're showing up, and you're listening to the podcasts, and some of you are coming to the support group, and some of you are showing up to soul recovery, spiritual coaching with me. I'm just so grateful that we're on this journey together. Together, we can do the work that will recover your soul. Until next time, namaste. Are you wondering, how do I go deeper on my soul recovery journey? Or how do I support this great podcast? Well, here's your call to action. If you're ready for real inner change and would like to work directly with me, visit the website and book a coaching session. I'm here to support you on your unique path. I'm here to help you let go of the past, to deepen your connection with higher power, whatever that is for you, and then to discover and step into a happy and healthy life of your making. You can also become part of the Soul Recovery community. One way is to join the support group. It's the first Monday of every month. It's on Zoom from 6 to 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and you can register on the website and get your Zoom link. It's the same link every month. We're also on social media. Of course, there's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and now even Insight Timer. Yes, lots of ways to connect. There is even a private Facebook group that will allow you for more communication and conversation about soul recovery with your community. If you would like an extra bonus episode every Friday, you can become an Apple Podcast subscriber or choose your tier level of giving on Patreon. I'd also love all the listeners to subscribe on the website so that I can keep you informed on what's going on with the podcast, the community, with me, and anything that's up and coming and new and great about soul recovery. Also, if you just take a little bit of time and give me 5 stars, a quick review, share the podcast with friends and family, make sure you're subscribing however you listen to the podcast, we're helping even more people to have soul recovery in their lives. If this podcast is providing you spiritual nourishment and inspiration, thank you for going to the website, pushing the donate button, and giving whatever feels right to you. It means so much to me because I have this mission of sharing soul recovery with the world, and your donations, your bookings, your subscriptions, everything that you do to be part of this community is making all that happen. Together, we can do the work that will recover your soul.